So Frank, you founded US Legal Forms about 25 years ago, but I was wondering before we can even get into that, what's your background? Are you a lawyer with an eye for software, or are you a digital expert with a passion for legal services?
I'm a lawyer since 1984, and during that period of time, I was, pretty much handling all the tech stuff, and so as things grew, I had to evolve. I discovered the internet very, very early when we were on a bulletin board with a group of lawyers around the country, and so got really involved with that at that time, and the rest is history.
Describe the internet in 1997. Were there other digital online services that were ahead of their time in the 90s that you admired?
Yeah, there was a site called FindLaw uh, that was formed by a guy and a girl, and I became friends with them, and they sold it uh, to West Publishing or the Thompson Group, and I still have had communications with them over time. And then you had other sites, at that time there were like, I don't know, five or six search engines coming out, and then Google came out. I really liked it a lot.
You talked about some of the relationships you had with you admired FindLaw, for example. What led you to create US Legal Forms, and was there a specific need that you had where you wished you could find an online library of legal docs? What inspired it?
I'm kind of entrepreneur type, and created a site called MS Lawyer and a company called LawNet.com very, very early on in Mississippi. And that was even before FindLaw. We also did MS Legal Forum. We did the Mississippi Supreme Court, Mississippi Bar, trained all the lawyers, trained all the judges, did seminars across the state, cutting edge on the internet at that time. And then MS Legal Forums did really well, and so we decided to do nationwide, and so that became US Legal Forums.
What inspired the actual idea to have a legal library?
So as a lawyer, prior to the internet, the way that you drafted documents were generally finding an example of a document that was similar to the document that you were drafting. And there were very few official forms at that time, but there were form books that were being sold by different companies, but there were form books. And so where you got your examples from were generally your firm's database, if they had one. Compare that to taking what I just said and putting it online and telling the lawyers, hey, if you want examples of documents that you're looking for, just go to US Legal Forums.
What about more technological engineering hurdles? Did you encounter any of those?
Yes, but later on, as the internet evolved, we did everything by hand. When you look at a web page today, you see a lot of things that you wouldn't see back then. And so we literally took a text document and typed out all the code and the content within that text document in images for the entire websites. Then the internet evolved.
What about legal hurdles in your journey?
We didn't have any other than the issue of making sure that the forms that we provided were not protected under copyright law.
I'm curious, it's been 25 years. What are some of the biggest changes? Has US Legal Forms changed substantially since 97?
As far as the obvious being, design and usability and conversion rates and stuff like that, over time, and probably 4 or 5, maybe 4 different websites, if you will. Those, were, pretty big changes for us. But the biggest change, we're coming up with ideas to increase revenue such as providing completed samples, providing previews, things like that.
Okay.
Improving the search engine.
What's been the biggest change in business law or business tech or legal tech since 1997? I was 8, so I don't know, but I'm wondering if you can sort of how the whole industry has changed.
When the internet started and people started using it and books and just different things like that, there were a lot of people that said, well, book tours are going to go away, overnight. And they didn't. It took quite some time for them to go away. Well, they said the same thing about lawyers, and that is the internet is going to change the law. It's going to change the way lawyers practice. It's going to change the way they charge fees. It's going to change the accessibility to law, and in a big way. That really didn't happen because over time, everything kind of shifted back to more traditional. And so what you see now is you see a lot of legal information, of course, that you can get online. When it comes to actually hiring a lawyer to do something, there really hasn't been a lot of change in how that lawyer, for example, charges you to do a conservatorship. One big change has come from the courts, where they have developed, and we are providing it to the public, what we call official forms. And this allows a lot of people to do something without a lawyer.
What are some of the most popular U.S. legal forms in our libraries that people use for lawyerless processes?
Change of name is one example. That's a court action. That's probably one of the most common. The divorce forms, somewhat, can be used. But the most popular center around your wills and power of attorney, living will, advance directives, healthcare, stuff like that. Those are the things that really do well, online.
Pitch U.S. legal forms to somebody in a couple sentences. How do you explain what your services are and why they should be using it?
It's a simple statement, but it's hard for people to take a simple statement for what it's worth, unless maybe it's someone that they know and trust. But the bottom line is people can find pretty much almost any form that they need on U.S. legal forms, including lawyers, small businesses, individuals. When I'm talking to them or a lawyer or whoever, I just say, look, we have everything. And it's easy to use, easy to download the form.
I guess, here's to another quarter century of U.S. legal forms. I'll talk to you in 25 years.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.